I remember the day I voted for Obama. I voted in Ohio, and my vote matters in Ohio. Ohio is a battleground state, but when I pulled up to the polls, all the soldiers were in line. There was so many black people in that goddamn line, I didn't even know it was the polls. I thought it was a check cashing place. And we were hugging each other, and old people were singing hymns and spirituals and shit. It was like the OJ verdict times 10 or some shit. I've never seen black people that happy. 8 years later, I'm pulling up to the polls again. This time I'm driving a brand new Porsche because the Obama years were very good to me. I was early voting, and when I parked my car, I figured out something that it would take the rest of the country another week to figure out. I understood that Donald Trump was going to be our next president because in Ohio, unlike D.C., you could see the results in the parking lot. Saw these goddamn pickup trucks and tractors and shit. And then I walked up and I saw a long, long line of dusty white people. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, these were the poor whites. And I must tell you, I've never had a problem with white people ever in my life. But full disclosure, the poor whites are my least favorites. We've gotten a lot of trouble out of them.
If you're just joining us, we are following breaking news from Charleston, South Carolina, where church shooter Dylan Roof has been sentenced to death for his racially charged attack in 2015. Local 4's Sarah Rosario was there as the verdict was announced.
The death penalty. That is the verdict from the same jury who last month convicted Dylan Roof of murder and hate crimes for the 2015 church shooting in Charleston. 9 people were killed, all black members of the historic Emmanuel AME Church who were there attending a Bible study where Roof, an avowed white supremacist, opened fire. During the penalty phase of the trial, prosecutors called more than 24 witnesses and showed jurors family photos of the victims enjoying life.
He just said that he was going to hurt a bunch of people at the University of Charleston, and he stopped talking about it. And I said, and I think he thought it went over my head that I didn't catch it. And I was like, what'd you say? Why you want to hurt those people in Charleston? Like, what's your grudge against them? And he never said anything about it. He just stopped talking about it. And he just said in 7 days, they all got 7 days. And that was on last week, Wednesday. And then Wednesday coming, he shot all these people in the church. And I don't even think the church was his primary target because he told us he was going for the school. But I think he couldn't get into that school because of the security and all that. He never said it. I've never heard that. Not once did I hear him say it. And we've been drunk plenty of nights. We've been so drunk that he's passed out on the side of his car, and we had to take him in the house. And not once in any of that did he say anything racist.
Many doctors are saying that they have a hard time convincing their black patients to agree to take the COVID vaccine. Well, maybe they should try telling them it makes you immune from paying child support.
Whoa. That's pretty racist, Colin.
I want to switch it up a little. Shay didn't write this one. This is all me.
I like to hear this.
Last week was National Rosa Parks Day, or as we call it in my house, Uppity Bus Passenger Day.
That you condemn white supremacy.
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which actually fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours. But do I condemn vicious racial discrimination? Yes, I do. Am I going to play your silly game of gotcha? No, I'm not. And frankly, this is why people have lost trust. And I know you're going to go print the headline tomorrow. I already know this. We already know how your game works. Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacy because you asked a stupid question. The reality is, I condemn vicious racial discrimination in this country, but the kind of vicious and systematic racial discrimination we see today is discrimination on the basis of race in a very different direction. You want to know what the best way is to end discrimination on the basis of race? Stop discriminating on the basis of race. Do that, and we're going to move this country forward. And I don't care whether you're black or white or brown or anything in between. That's how we're going to unite this country. You people have been responsible for dividing this country to a breaking point, creating a projection of national division. I meet people from the south side of Chicago to meetings like this one of every shade of melanin, multiple, from man to woman, doesn't make a difference, who are hungry for reviving unity in this country. And you, with your catechism that you try to get to politicians to whatever fake headline you're going to print on the basis of this conversation tomorrow, that's what's dividing this country to a breaking point. Shame on you. Look people in the eye and tell them what you've actually failed to tell them for the last 5 years. Own the accountability for your own failures as the media. That's how we rebuild trust in this country.
Jussie Smollett is a very famous French actor. He was the victim of a racist and homophobic attack. You see, Jussie Smollett is gay and he is black, not just French. When he was walking down the street late at night, 2 white men came out of the shadows with MAGA hats on and beat him up. Tied a rope around his neck, called him all kinds of niggas, and put some bleach on him and ran off into the night. The whole country was up in arms. He was talking about it all the time on the news. And for some reason, African Americans, we were like oddly quiet. We were so quiet about this shit that the gay community started accusing African American community of being homophobic for not supporting him. What they didn't understand is that we were supporting him with our silence, because we understood that this nigga was clearly lying.
When was it okay to have someone have a different opinion than you, and then you get angry with them for that and try to convince them to agree with you? I remember growing up, people just had different opinions, and they were just individuals as a result of that. Are you trying to homogenize everybody so everyone has your opinion? So that's a new phenomenon that I don't remember growing up with, A. But B, I don't mind debates. A debate started this country. It's when you start arguing about what is objectively true. Then, I don't know what you're doing, but you might as well move back into the cave, because that's where you're gonna land if you don't even know or understand how to establish what is true and base your legislation and laws on that, rather than on the political whims of one party or another.
Give me the BLM protests. How are they different?
It's different when you're reacting to one moment in history that you don't like, and that really, it has an effect on you, but the system itself will keep, no.
Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up!
The 3rd precinct of the Minneapolis Police Department, on fire. Nearby businesses ablaze. This is how the night of May 28th unfolded. George Floyd's arrest and death in police custody on Monday set off protests in the Twin Cities. The protesters are demanding that criminal charges be brought against the officers involved.
Put their fists up! Yeah! We all here! All lives matter!
When that didn't happen on Thursday, some demonstrators escalated their tactics, while others tried to keep the peace.
Idea how many people die at the hands of the police every year in the United States?
Too many.
How many? Do you have any?
No.
Okay. Do you have any idea, bro? Do you have any idea? How many you think? Throw a number out there. How many people do police kill every year?
Probably like hundreds, whether that's justified or not.
What do you think? Throw a number. It's more than hundreds, but it's about 1,000. Do you know how many of those people that police kill are unarmed? Bro, it's 1,000. How many are unarmed? Unarmed? Yep.
Saying like 30.
30 of them?
Yeah.
What do you think?
450.
Okay, it's about 100. How many are black? On average, every year. How many unarmed black people black Americans are killed by the police every year? Okay, yeah, so it's about 30 or so, okay? Now, there's about 40 million black Americans in the United States, okay? There's a lot of we have 400 plus million guns in the United States. We have so many guns. We are a gun-toting society. We love our guns. Police are afraid of guns. You know what I mean? Like, police are like, what's the greatest danger to police is, I mean, there's so many things, but guns, like there's so many guns, right? So everything a police officer does in any engagement is dangerous at some level because people have so many guns. You don't know who has guns. There are bad cops. There are good cops. There are cops who never should be cops. There are teachers who never should be teachers.
The Black Lives Matter movement into grips of a legal battle centered around this man. He's accused of stealing more than $10 million in donations. The infighting among activists has been simmering for months before finally escalating into a full-on confrontation. Black Lives Matter chapters around America suing their central fundraising arm and its newly installed director, Shayla Maya Bowers, accusing him of stealing millions of dollars in donations to line his own pockets. They say they've attempted to privately resolve this issue with the grassroots groups on 10 separate occasions, instead accuse them of financial malfeasance and misusing funds, including an unsanctioned trip to Jamaica and $10,000 monthly stipends for leaders who claimed they were volunteers. So joining us now is Erica Smith. She is a writer for the LA Times who wrote a column on these allegations and the corresponding lawsuit. Erica, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so this is somewhat convoluted. There are a lot of accusations being tossed around here on both sides, and each side essentially accusing the other of misusing millions worth of BLM funding.
Compared to, say, some other long legacy civil rights groups like the NAACP and the Urban League. I think that already since 2020, Black Lives Matter has had some hits taken against it because of speculation about how Monday is being funded, infighting within the group. So I think this is now starting to spell out into the larger public. So we'll see if it does have an effect on the movement. I can't see how it wouldn't, though.
And as we said at the top of this, you are an LA Times columnist. You wrote this article, concluding that, quote, "I fear Black Lives Matter. The movement will never matter as much as it once did." How significant of a blow do you think this is for the movement? And how is the impact different for Black America versus America overall?
I think a lot of it's going to depend on what we find out in this lawsuit. I mean, if there is some level of financial malfeasance, if members of the boards of directors are indeed taking money and using fraud and using it for self-dealing, I think that's going to have a major blow, because that's going to be a sense of, do we want to continue to donate to this organization? Is this organization actually representing Black interests, Black Americans, or is it just existing to kind of for people to line their own pockets? I think that right now we are at a point in this country where Black Lives Matter and the future of Black Americans are very intertwined, if not necessarily on the individual level, I think on the grander public political realm. And so I think that it will have an effect on issues that are in the news, like critical race theory, or various other efforts to police reform, various other efforts for equity. I think that it just creates a kind of a way to weaponize these issues and say, well, Black Lives Matter is corrupt. Why should we listen to anything you have to say? So
I'm feeling spicy. So here's my hot take of the day. All white people are racist. Every single last one of them, all of them are racist. What? And I don't mean that to say like every single individual white person, if I talk to you, you would have some kind of racist ideology. I'm saying that as a white person, you uphold a system of racism by literally just being white.
Okay, so apparently, if you are just white, you uphold a system of racism. That is delusional. That is an insane thing to say. Just because you come out of the womb white does not automatically mean you are racist. That doesn't even make sense. You cannot change your skin color. You cannot change your gender. You cannot change any of these things. So what makes you think that just by being white naturally you just came out with all these racist ideologies. No, you're delusional. That's wrong.
I believe if you're not spending your literal entire life dismantling racism, then you're contributing to its continuation.
What?
And people get so like, whenever like I say like people are racist, like why is it such a big fucking deal? Like, yes, you're racist. Like, okay.
It's a big deal because you just said all white people are naturally, inherently racist. And then you followed up by saying that if you aren't spending your entire life dismantling racism, you are practically a bad person, or you practically don't deserve anything good out of this life. Why wouldn't people be shocked when you say this? This is a crazy thing to say. This is an insane thing to say. I can't believe this.
Okay, we've established that. Now, what are you going to do to change it? Racism refers to power and race. If you are the powerful race in a society, then you're racist. Like, I just don't understand why it's so taboo. Let's talk about it. Let's accept it so that we can work towards changing it. We're never going to get anywhere if people won't just fucking acknowledge it in the first. And going on in public.
Okay, so to break it down, her argument says racism refers to power and power within society on a basis of race. But my question would be, since you want to be, I guess, literal or logical in your own analysis, if we do make every single race have an equal amount of power, what if one race has 0.1% more power? What if one race has one more representative in Congress? What if one race has, I don't know, one more company owned? What if one race owns slightly more things? Are they naturally or inherently racist? And let's say the roles were reversed. If black people were the majority in society, or if black people had the majority of Congress, or if black people had the majority of companies owned or economics in society, are they racist? What if black people were the richest in the country? Would they be racist? Because the reason I bring this up is because white people aren't even the richest race in society by statistics. It's actually Asian men and women, then Indian men and women. So why do you ignore them? Not saying that, and here's what I want to say. Not saying that Asian people or Indian people are racist. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is you tend to ignore other races every time you talk about racism, and you focus specifically on white people as if other races don't exist, and as if other races are not doing good.
Okay, that's cool. Most people aren't thinking it though, right? Here, look at this one. Median household income by race. Look at Asians, by the way. You know why Asian is so high? Household income?
We work too hard, I guess.
Do you work hard? No.
There's also, we also know that in families, like Asian tend to work both roles.
Dude, you're more likely, okay, Asian in the United States.
Yes.
You ready? Asians are more likely to be new immigrants.
Right.
New immigrants are more likely to live in larger households with extended families.
Right.
So you're going to have like cousins and uncles and grandparents. It's
a lot of Indian people in this room. We are the richest minority in this country. How did this happen? Turns out we ended up here in the late 1800s. That's when we first showed up in America. We were looking for Christopher Columbus. We heard he was looking for us. 1800s, so around 1920, there were 3,000 Indian people like us in this country. But they called us Caucasians because they already had Indians. And in 1921, this Punjabi guy by the name of Bhagat Singh Thind sued the United States. And he went to the Supreme Court. They deported those 3,000 Indian people. And in 1965, the Asian American Exclusion Act was lifted and we started trickling back into this country. But that means for like 45 years, all those Indian people were in India studying. Like, what does America like? They like to sleep, they like to eat, and they like to drive. They're gonna need gas stations, they're gonna need motels, and they're gonna need cardiologists. Gas, beds, and meds, baby, USA! USA!
Historically, there were 4 castes. Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas are known as the general castes, or upper castes, while Shudras was the bottom caste. One additional lower caste was recently added to the system, the Dalits, which I will talk more about later. It is important to know that caste determine jobs, but also social life. For instance, one is not allowed to marry or even have social interactions with someone from another caste, and people who do face discrimination.
The way it works is that if you're born a Shudra, you stay a Shudra. and you do the jobs that Shudras are meant to do. So like the Brahmins are meant to, say the word of God. They're meant to advise the kingdom and like people on religious matters. The Kshatriyas are the warrior class. They'll be the noblemen. They'll be involved in politics. They'll be involved in wars. But you can't have a Kshatriya convert to a Shudra or vice versa.
Brutal violence against women are an everyday reality.
Welcome back. The 19-year-old Dalit gang rape victim from Hathras in Uttar Pradesh succumbed to injuries in Delhi's Safdarjung hospital.
There appears to be another orchestrated attempt to divert the focus from ensuring justice for the victim to launching a full-fledged conspiracy to use caste as an issue to create a conflict amongst the people across the country.
But in this instance, the story quickly took on a life of its own. On average, there are 88 sexual assaults in India every single day. And within this number, there's another story that's far less discussed, that members of marginalized communities are often most at risk. This includes women from the Dalit community, who are deemed the lowest in India's caste system. India's caste system has ancient roots but modern impacts. The idea of caste originates from the Manusmriti, a book of laws for Hindus. It divides people into 4 castes on the basis of their profession. And outside this caste hierarchy lie the Dalit people, a caste deemed untouchable. The word Dalit comes from the Hindi word Dalan, meaning broken or oppressed. They were assigned the worst jobs, like cleaning toilets, removing dead animal carcasses, or sweeping floors. While legally, the practice of untouchability is supposed to be outlawed, attitudes towards Dalit people continue to color their lives today.
Caste discrimination has been banned in India since 1948, but it persists and it travels. Seattle has just become the first city in America to ban discrimination on the basis of caste. The city has a large South Asian population, many of them working in the tech sector. But supporters of the bill say the caste system is still being used in the United States to discriminate within the workplace, within housing, retail, sometimes in public places. In the future, it will be identified in its own class, alongside race, religion and gender identity. Is the change in the law necessary in a city where South Asians still only make up 2% of the population? Why was the legislation that was already on the statute book not enough? Discrimination on race has been there for a long time. Why couldn't that have covered it?
Because the fact is that the oppressed caste peoples experience a very specific kind of discrimination, and that is manifested itself not in the form of race. I mean, just to give you a concrete example, what does caste discrimination in the workplace look like? If you're a tech worker, say at Amazon, which is headquartered in Seattle, and you are an oppressed caste South Asian worker, and your bosses are dominant, so you're South Asian, but your bosses are also South Asian, but they are from the dominant caste, and the discrimination you experience, being denied raises or promotions, or being excluded from meetings, or being made the target of derogatory remarks or slurs, being made to suffer daily indignities. If that is happening in a way that the people who are perpetrating that against you are also from the same, have the same race as you, then it becomes very complicated in the courts. And that is why, this is such a major victory that Seattle has become the first ever jurisdiction globally outside South Asia to recognize caste as a specific form of discrimination.
Dalits, asserting their identities and finds inspiration in unexpected places. Like this ordinary-looking block in New Jersey, named Ambedkar Avenue.
Only someone who's caste oppressed would go through the effort to try to file to get a street named after Ambedkar, but they did it. And I think it's this very special, secret knowledge of oppressed people that someone lifted up into the American consciousness.
This street is an homage to a man who lifted up millions when he wrote India's constitution. Before he died in 1956, Ambedkar also converted to Buddhism, rejecting the Hindu religion and its caste system that had oppressed his people, and he encouraged his fellow Dalits to do the same. many did.
For us, Ambedkar, Dr. Ambedkar and Lord Buddha, we are followers because he uplifted us.
Mayuri of Charmal is a scientist in New Jersey, and she goes out of her way to drive down Ambedkar Avenue. She says she would not be in America if it were not for Ambedkar.
Before Ambedkar, we were not aware of our rights. We were called untouchables. No one was touching us. No one wanted to eat with us. He uplifted us. He fought for us.
So that to me is amazing.
And Ambedkar is part of the fabric of the American civil rights movement, too. Martin Luther King Jr. was moved by the Dalit cause on his trip to India. And the American civil rights movement, in turn, influenced the Dalit movement, inspiring the Dalit Panthers.
Slavery is a very big subject. I have in my home an entire bookcase of books about slavery in various parts of the world and various times of history. And the sad fact is that slavery has been a universal institution for thousands of years, as far back as you can trace human history. And what we're looking at is if slavery is something that happened to one race of people in one country, when in fact the spread of it was around the world. In 1776, which is when Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, as well as when the United States got started, he said that Western Europe is the only place in the world where there is no slavery.
In Istanbul were people of many different races. Skin color did not mark a person as free or enslaved. As a result, the descendants of those enslaved within the Ottoman Empire, unlike the descendants of enslaved Africans, have not faced centuries of racism and discrimination. The trafficking of Africans into slavery began much further back in time than many people realize, with enslaved people shipped not across the Atlantic Ocean, but the Indian Ocean instead.
The Indian Ocean slave trade is probably the oldest of the slave trades and transported more human beings, and it was multi-directional.
Exports of the enslaved from the Indian Ocean to the Muslim world grew exponentially after Arab traders won control of the Swahili coast and sea routes in the 8th century. The trafficking of millions of human beings from Africa's east coast led to the emergence of African diaspora communities like the Shidis in Pakistan and India and the Afro-Iraqis in Basra.
Islamic law does not permit slave trading. Many Muslims throughout the Indian Ocean world ignored those rules. And so they plundered and captured Africans, Indians, Southeast Asians, usually non-Muslims.
The hub of this trade was in modern-day Tanzania, under control of the Omani Arab Empire from the 17th century. For 200 years, it specialized in three things: ivory, spices, and slaves. By 1807, Britain had finally turned its back on the slave trade. Naval warships were dispatched to suppress the slave trades of other nations, leading the British Royal Navy into the Indian Ocean and into direct contact with the slave traders of Zanzibar.
The classic case was Pakistan, where the affirmative action was put in for people in East Pakistan who were way behind the people in West Pakistan. Fine. But again, as time goes on, these goodies get handed out to more and more people. And the irony in that case is that East Pakistan seceded and became the independent nation of Bangladesh, and the program keeps going right on because there are enough other constituencies. So when this happens again and again and again, you can't say this is just an aberration, that something that went wrong. It always goes wrong.
I'm Ziad. I use he, him pronouns, and I am Bangladeshi American, and I'm Asian American. The reason why I was lukewarm about the term Asian American insofar as its usefulness is that I don't actually often refer to myself as Asian American, despite fully believing that I am, because to Yuling's point, oftentimes I think people have a perception of what Asian American looks like, right? And sometimes that leaves out South Asians, sometimes that leaves out Central Asians, sometimes that leaves out huge parts of the world. Me personally, I lean into my hyphenated identities, right? I am American, and I am Muslim, and I am Bangladeshi, and I am Asian, right?
In the dark pages of history that is quietly overlooked by mainstream academia, a crucial chapter remains unsettlingly muted, overshadowed by more comfortable narratives. The Islamic conquest of India, one of the most brutal and transformative episodes in human history, is barely discussed in mainstream discourse today. This era, marked by relentless invasion, unimaginable suffering, and the systematic dismantling of an ancient civilization, should be as deeply ingrained in our collective memory as the Holocaust is for the Jewish people. Every Hindu must grasp the magnitude of this dark chapter, a narrative of profound loss and brutal conquest that reshaped an entire subcontinent. This is the unheard, bloodiest story in the history of mankind, a tale that demands recognition, remembrance, and reverence. According to Tarikh-e-Firishta, after Ghaznavid Empire captured the city of Thanesar in 1014, the army of Islam brought to Ghazna about 200,000 captives and much wealth, so that the capital appeared like an Indian city, with every soldier possessing wealth and many slaves. A few decades later, another Ghaznavid ruler, Sultan Ibrahim, looted Multan and took 100,000 Hindu captives to Ghazna. In the 11th century book Tariq al-Yamiri, Arab historian al-Utbi recorded that Muhammad of Ghazni seized Peshawar in 1001, capturing approximately 100,000 Hindu youths. During his 12th raid into India in 1019, Muhammad returned with such a multitude of Hindu slaves that their market value plummeted to just 2 to 10 dirhams per head. This led traders from distant lands to flock in droves, resulting in many Central Asian regions like Khorasan and Iraq becoming filled with Hindu slaves. Muslim rulers also bolstered their number of Hindu slaves through territorial expansions. For instance, Qutbuddin Aibak enslaved approximately 20,000 Hindus during his invasion of Gujarat in 1197. The Fatwa-e-Alamgiri, compiled under Aurangzeb's directive in the late 17th century, codified Hanifa-based Sharia laws for the Mughal Empire, including regulations concerning slavery. Some of these laws included the rights of Muslims to purchase and own slaves, a Muslim man's right to intimate relations with a captive slave girl owned by himself or another Muslim without marriage.
And so this was
as late as the year this country was founded.
Yes. And so the idea that this is something that the United States had that nobody else had, or the other countries that didn't have, it's been estimated that there are more slaves in India than in the entire Western Hemisphere, and that's before and after Columbus got here.
My mom's sick, man. She's a Muslim woman. She wears a hijab. I don't look very Muslim, like just off look, so nobody ever bothers me about it, you know? She wears a hijab, she looks Muslim all the time. One time she told me a story. Yeah, it's like a Halloween costume. She looks Muslim all the time, you know? So one time she told me that she was driving around and a guy pulled up next to her in traffic and saw that she was wearing the hijab, and he like flipped her off and then he like followed her in his car for a while. And I was like terrified when she told me this. I didn't want to ask her this question, but I asked, I was like, Mom, have you ever like thought about taking off your hijab? And she was like, Malik, I would rather die a martyr than let those people change me. I was like, all right, Tupac, fucking relax. Jesus. Chill out, don't talk like that. Don't wish a motherfucker would. That's exactly the opposite of what I wanted. She's nuts. Crazy talk. But I was proud of her. Like, I don't want her to change anything about herself, but I want her to be safe. So it's like, what do we do here? You know, like something's got to change. Society is not going to change. So it's like, we got to figure something out. What I'm thinking of doing is coming out with a line of hate crime proof hijabs that my mom can wear. Completely hate crime proof, okay? First one I'm thinking standard, just Confederate flag hijab. Because listen, that's gonna short circuit. Nobody's gonna know what to do when they see that. Next time some guy pulls up next to my mom in traffic, he's gonna be like, oh. She got us. She wore the piece of cloth that we like. And this is another one. This is a prototype. I don't know if it's ready for the streets just yet, but all white hijab, but just a little bit pointy in the back. Just a little bit pointy. Not all the way, but just deceptively pointy, just for some peace of mind.
Across North America and Europe, a rising wave of immigration restriction is sweeping through many countries. Nations once known for its welcoming policies are now tightening their borders, and the question on everybody's mind is why? What has caused the shift, and what does it mean for the future of immigration? You're watching Times XP, and I'm Dhriti Atri. So in recent years, immigration has become a hot topic around the globe, with many countries putting in place new restrictions, especially for those who are working in low-wage jobs or those on temporary visas. Now, these changes are a response to growing worries about economic pressure, overcrowded public services, housing shortage. Here, let's take a closer look at how this is playing out in some of the major countries. First, we'll talk about Canada's crackdown on low-wage workers. Canada, known for its welcoming attitude towards immigrants, has recently taken a step back. Now, starting in September 2024, the country will significantly reduce the number of low-wage temporary foreign workers, as it allows it. If an area in Canada has an unemployment rate of 6% or higher, employers won't be able to hire low-wage TFWs anymore.
How we teach our kids history has become a big controversy these days, with liberals accusing conservatives of wanting to whitewash the past, and sometimes that's true, sometimes they do. But plenty of liberals also want to abuse history to control the present. And last month, a scholar named James Sweet caught hell for calling them out for doing just that. He criticized a phenomenon known as presentism, which means judging everyone in the past by the standards of the present. It's the belief that people who lived 100 or 500 or 1,000 years ago really should have known better. Who doesn't have moments from your past that make you cringe? Who hasn't said, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I wore that. I can't believe I thought that. I can't believe I did that. You ate dirt. You wanted to be a Ghostbuster. You shoplifted gum. You tried to be a white breakdancer. You wanted to marry Scott Baio. I read Ayn Rand. I was into numerology. Yes, because we hadn't then grown into the persons we would become. And humanity writ large is just the collective version of that. Did Columbus commit atrocities? Of course. But people back then were generally atrocious. Everybody who could afford one had a slave, including people of color. The way people talk about slavery these days, you'd think it was a uniquely American thing that we invented in 1619. But slavery throughout history has been the rule, not the exception. The Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, Romans, the Arabs, British, the early Americans, all the way up through R. Kelly. Slave comes from Slav, because so many Slavic people were enslaved, and they're as white as the Hallmark Channel. Who do you think gathered the slaves from the interior of Africa to sell to slave traders? Africans, who also kept their own slaves. We're a species prone to making others of our species our bitch. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Humans are not good people. And the capacity for cruelty is a human thing, not a white thing. That's the truth, even though it doesn't jibe with the current narrative. But in today's world, when truth conflicts with narrative, it's the truth that has to apologize. Being woke is like a magic moral time machine where you judge everybody against what you imagine you would have done in 1066, and you always win.
To our current times, in which there exists virtually no limit to what racial minorities can and do say about white people. I believe this is the natural outgrowth of a perverse ideology that teaches us that every societal ill is the fault of white people, and that whatever prejudice acts we may inflict upon them does not constitute discrimination because we don't have the power to discriminate. And alarmingly, this is particularly pronounced in the younger generation. But is it true? Do we not have the power to discriminate? Well, let's see. First, let's take a look at the racial hatred at the interpersonal level. In today's society, it has become somewhat fashionable to think things and say things about and to white people that would not be acceptable if it was said about any other race. And we're being taught that this double standard is not wrong, that it is rather a form of empowerment. They'll attribute negative experiences that they've had with white people to their whiteness. You had an argument in line at the grocery store with a white person, they were acting entitled because they were white. A white driver cut you off when you were driving, they need to check their white privilege. Your actions, your conduct, and your existence, in other words, boil down to your whiteness. And ashamedly, at one point in time, this was how I used to think as well. And beyond the people in my circle, I noticed that many people of color have this sort of blasé attitude, an attitude most particularly pronounced when there are no other white people around. Things are being said not just behind closed doors, but out in the open, not just between close friends, but between complete strangers. So here's the thing. This is something that I've experienced countless times, so I know that there are other people who are experiencing it too. I know it must resonate with at least some of you. The difficulty here is that no matter how many anecdotes I share, they are just that, anecdotes. And people who refuse to believe that this is happening will just chalk it up to my experiences being a fluke. Or worse yet, they'll say I'm lying. So I've compiled some TikTok videos. I want you to take a look at the things that are being said about white people, especially by the younger generation, the kind of statements people wouldn't dare say about people of any other race. Take a look at what is stunningly in vogue in today's society and ask yourselves, where does this lead to years down the line?
You have a token white and you're hanging out with your friend group of color, you need to ask permission from everybody in the group to bring your white friend. Like, don't just bring them.
What?
I might not be in the mood to deal with white shenanigans that day. That's all I'm saying. And another thing, it feeds into their ego. Like, don't let them think they're a good white person.
Accomplices ask, how can they support Black and Indigenous people of color? And sometimes I really don't know what to say, but here's one easy way. Just don't have babies.
Native American.
Can single-handedly cause the white genocide that they are so afraid of. With 2.25 billion Asian women and 500 million white men, baby, it'll only take 2 generations. In 2 generations, there will no longer be any blonde-haired.
These are some things I noticed about white American culture. Being grounded is a punishment to them. That's what they call punishment.
Duh.
The least grounded, least balanced, most destructive race considers being grounded a punishment? Yeah.
Positive.
They also say really violent for...
If a white person said that about a black person, bro, it would be bad. Do you know how bad this shit will be going up right now? That's the exact same thing Officer Tatum was saying. I've never seen this before. I never really saw this. Yeah, man. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is. They say things like, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Why do we have to kill the birds? Why is everything so violent? It's almost like one's language and phrases reflects one's nature.
I know she did just say that.
So that new Jeffrey Dahmer movie on Netflix is the perfect example of the sensationalization of white violence. People have a much easier time sympathizing with white criminals than they do with black victims. People think these shows are harmless, but they actually contribute to a much bigger issue. It contributes to the viewpoint that white people are less violent than everyone else, and white violence is something to be consumed in media, and that's it.
What is
What's with Caucasian people and like their inability to like read a fucking room? Like y'all act like you don't understand because y'all
What?
the first
I'm
ones during
Make sure this is all the way.
I hate generalized comments.
Okay, that's the problem.
But y'all, are y'all surprised what all we saw though?
What you mean? Are we
All the
surprised?
people that saying something is women.
You might have a point there. I can't lie.
Why are y'all surprised?
I mean, in the last video I said I seen a lot of women tweet, "I hate white people." I never see a lot of men doing that. So I can't lie. You might have a point there. Let's keep going. Let's see. That's a great point there. So
Open up a whole new can of worms.
to get so mad when black people be like, you do realize that the original Jewish people were black, right? White people do not need to explain to anybody about us all bleeding red because, baby, you all are the people that need to learn that lesson. Clearly, history shows that you all are the people that like to pillage and eradicate, enslave and oppress, attempt to suppress greatness because you all simply don't have it, right?
Here go y'all cum goblins who don't even live in the fucking city. Which, by the way, the Q-tip people are the last ones to ever talk about somebody stealing anything.
That's very common among white women. You may have not intended that, but there are many white women who act exactly like you.
You can tell us like a
to donate to the discriminated white fund. You'd be helping millions.
It says high protein like cicadas and cheese.
Sleep at night, I'm racist to white people, and I'm proud of it.
Why do people not understand that you can't be racist to white people? It's impossible. The system is not set up that way. You can insult white people, but it is not racism. Me calling a white person a tub of mayonnaise and like a flower looking ass, that's not racist.
You went all the way to Africa to physically take black people from their homes, shove them in on boats where a lot of them got diseases and died, told them where they could sit on a bus, told them which schools they could go to, which water fountains they could use, which bathrooms they could use, and that's sugarcoating it. Those are just terms. I'm not even describing all the disgusting things that happen, and they don't even want revenge. They are letting you guys skate by asking for equal rights.
No, that's crazy.
That's it? And you're still saying no? They are not as angry as they should be. Y'all are getting off easy and you're still saying no? Fuck you.
Some people look at that and chalk it up to the grumblings of the powerless. That's the idea that when you have a power disparity, the less powerful sort of has this general society given leeway to complain about the more powerful. The villagers complaining about their king doesn't have the same reign as the king making snide and crude comments about the villagers. But that's not what's going on here. Because although certain segments of our society refuse to believe this, even as evidence mount before our very eyes, in one side of the political aisle, people of color actually have greater power than white people. That is the truth that is not being acknowledged by the people that need to hear it, because this gets in the way of them wielding that power in the way they want.
Let's see where this is coming from, because I've heard this multiple times that black people have a lot more power. I wouldn't say more.
People of color. That's why.
Okay, not black people. Okay,
people of color.
We do, brother. Can't lie.
That's Asians too.
I would say we probably do, man. I've heard this term. I've heard that a lot.
But in what way, though, is what we asking. We're not saying you're wrong. We just saying how. Yeah, I would like to have that.
Yeah, I want to hear
we need
a little bit of clarification.
But I've heard that multiple
But you
times.
say you believe something, so how you believe?
I believe in like
without
entertainment-wise and like certain things
But
that we
that's
can
black
control.
people, though.
That's not even just black people. I say the Koreans might eating us on that. To be honest with you,
Entertainment? How?
America?
That's what I'm wondering. In America?
Yeah, I don't know where you're going with
I'm
that.
talking about in general, like
worldwide. We are talking about in America.
Now we're talking about solely America.
Yeah.
And this is certainly evidence that in one side of the political aisle, people of color have more power than white people. Because if we didn't have the power, we wouldn't be able to put into place practices and policies that does this. That's what power is. Things like Minneapolis local government agreeing to a contract with the teachers union that says white teachers must be fired first. New York City's government enacting a policy of having white seniors go to the back of the line on life-saving COVID treatment.
Wait, what?
A college professor that says white people should be killed and facing no repercussions. Cornell University banning white people from rock climbing lessons.
I think I see what you're saying.
One of many instances of liberal colleges doing the utmost to exclude and ostracize white students. BIPOC-only events equal no whites, but they don't have the guts to say that, even though that is what that is. That's what makes it different than the mere grumblings of the common villager. The villagers have surrounded the palace, demanding Marie Antoinette's head. The power dynamics have shifted. That is a fact.
But even with that being said, can I ask, do y'all think, even with those examples, does that mean we have more power?
No, I don't think so. I think we have more leeway on what we say. Yeah. Like, she's just saying it's okay to say bad things about white people for people of color.
Yeah, I don't know if power is the right word.
That's not power.
I think there's more.
He was just bringing up like examples of like policies and things that affect white people.
Yeah.
Put in place by people that aren't white.
But you gotta understand that some white people that are regular citizens include themselves like with everybody. They don't include themselves as high level government. You know what I'm saying? So a white person couldn't go make some crazy stuff happen, they feel like. But a black person, like, you have to show more sympathy toward them. So that, like, we're talking about regular citizens here. So a white person, like, people of government and like high powered people, those are totally different people. We see them there in position, we think automatically, okay, white people have that power. But all white people don't have that power. That's only one man with that power. So, but they make more stuff like basically like the black lady just popped up on there. Like, they like black people have more. I see what he's saying though. We have more ways to like make stuff happen because of our color. This is what he's saying. Because we're the minority.
I guess that makes sense.
I see what
in that aspect, yeah. You break it down like that.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna let it ride. All right.
He said, hold on.
Media outlets do not cover these stories. Some people out there have no idea that this is going on. But worse, some others out there know but agree with what's going on. And for those people to convince themselves that this is not racial discrimination, they play mind tricks and word games. They use phrases and talking points like punching up. You can't be racist to white people. You can't oppress the oppressor, meaning I'm acting oppressively, but I've designated you as the oppressor, so everything goes. Or Ibram X. Kennedy's infamous words, the only way to remedy past discrimination is current discrimination. Or when people say things like, what we're doing to white people is not racism, because racism is prejudice plus power, and we don't have the power. They use all this mind-bending apparatus to delude themselves into believing what they're doing faces no moral consequence. But in the back of their minds, perhaps in their subconscious minds, is racial revenge. We experienced it, you experienced it too. See how you like it. That people of color are using our newfound power to act this way and then pretend like none of this is going on leads me to believe that we would have done the same thing that white people did were we to be in their historical position. Because such acts have its roots in human nature, not white people nature. And one can only imagine what might happen in the coming decades when the demographics of the US will have shifted such that white people will no longer constitute the majority, when the younger generation you've just seen have graduated from elite schools and hold positions of power in our institutions, our government, corporations, entertainment, news media, and so forth, how they might, in wielding the levers of society, be able to rationalize using their adult brain the hatred that was embedded in their minds during their adolescence. What we're seeing is just the beginning.
It is crazy.
To the white people who are watching, I just want to say, you are not an oppressor for refusing to accept an ideology that teaches people to hate you, that teaches you that you are inherently bad, that your children are inherently bad, that you're inherently racist no matter what you do or how you think, that you need to repent by taking affirmative steps in your life to redress harms that your ancestors may have done, or the racist actions of other white people. In fact, you are not an oppressor, period. You need to do this and you need to do that because you benefit from privilege thing is bogus. It is just a way for people harboring racial animus to attack you, to say that the accomplishments you've achieved in your life isn't yours, and to silence you. It is not you. It is this ideology that is wrong and perverse. It is one cloaked in a shroud of pseudo-justice and self-righteousness, all the while excreting toxic fumes of racial hatred. It blames all white people for the actions of their ancestors, something you have no control over, while absolving black people of personal responsibility for their own individual actions by holding that black people commit acts of harm, for example, towards another community. That's the fault of white supremacy. White people are controlling them like puppets on a string. It's a backwards, transgressive ideology. If you're of a liberal bent, but there's a small corner in your brain telling you as you're watching this video that perhaps some of this is wrong, listen to your intuition. Maybe you think, oh, I agree with most of what the progressive left teaches about racial justice, but just not with some of this disagreeable stuff, only at the extremes. I'm here to tell you that the rot starts at the core. This racial hatred of white people is a natural outgrowth, part and parcel of an ideology that attempts to indoctrinate us into believing that there is current systemic oppression going on, that all racial disparities we see today is the sole result of oppression by white people, when there are other more plausible explanations to be had that these same people are silencing as impermissible hate speech. They're telling you, shut up, you'll take it, and you'll like it. But contrary to what they're saying, you don't have to take that. You can believe that the things that have been done in the past were morally wrong, as well you should. all the while believing that what is currently going on is also wrong, that we're going backwards, that this is history rhyming with itself. The table is turning in an eye for an eye manner. As the great Mahatma Gandhi once said, an eye for an eye will leave the whole world blind. But those driven by hatred would sooner gouge everyone's eyes out than realize that true victory for people of color would have been having history record that when the power dynamics shifted, we treated white people with the kindness that their forefathers may not have shown our forefathers. But now, it will say when we gained the power, we turned around and started doing some of the same stuff to white people. Segregation, social ostracization, hatred sanctioned by government and law. And we're doing all of this while pretending like we're doing something valiant. We've missed our bus. With this video, I implore you to ask yourself, what are we doing to white people? As some people love to say, do better.
Y'all think he's stretching with the segregation?
Nah, he's not stretching, bro.
Can we go back to the segregation thing?
Where was that?
This is impossible to find where it was. This is gonna be
impossible time.
I think he just mentioned that as like he could get to that.
Hey, he's basically saying that we'll put white people in slavery
if we could. That's what he's saying.
That's basically what he's saying.
Yeah.
I think he made a couple of good points. I think Muhammad Gandhi quote like an eye for an eye would lead to like a
eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. That's what the term is.
And I think that's a great point. I think
that's what the Bible says, turn the other cheek.
And I think if we all,
but you think black people gonna have enough power to try to put some white people in?
No, he's saying people of color. He's not saying
he's saying that ideology. Basically, I'm gonna summarize what he's basically saying. He's saying that ideology teaches all people of color and minorities that it's basically us versus them. They oppressed us, so they're evil, they're bad. Fuck them.
Yeah, I understand that.
That's what it's saying.
I'm just trying to feel like y'all believe.
Nigga, fuck no, I don't believe that stupid shit.
And you think black
but he's saying way later, like whenever they become the minority.
What we're doing to them,
nigga, that's gonna happen in 1,000,000 years.
Nah, what? No, actually, like the year 2042, people of color, like as a whole in America, like it'll go to 51% to 49%. Yeah, like white people become the minority, not by like more black people, but as a whole, and then like more interracial marriage and like over progressive time, there will have like at this rate we're going, there will be more.
That's why they have that weird Netflix show, that doctor saying, I was trying to help my people by making all those babies with all those women.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, he was like, I'm trying to help my white people, basically.
Damn.
And then there's that one conspiracy theory, like, oh, these white men want to stop abortion because white people are supposed to be really getting abortions. That's that one theory I heard, like conspiracy theory to eliminate that.
So basically he's saying we got black privilege. That's what I'm getting out of this.
I think
basically you can go to your dean and say my teachers were racist. A white man can't do that. He's basically saying how can a person be racist to a white man?
Yeah, I see that.
That's crazy. So he's saying we basically have power because we can pull cards with certain things.
I think
you're a racist.
I think also what he was saying. Like I think to me what we're doing, I think we're trying to make white people more sensitive. Like we're trying to make white people think that they are they're racist. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, and what we're doing is making them softer, like, and like all the examples that he might have gave, like, what we're doing to white people, making them softer and making them think like, oh, we're such a terrible people and we're oppressing you.
That sucks.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people of color like blame white people for racism that they have never experienced. Like, I can't
never experienced
like
that. Bro.
But y'all,
and you can't punish people for what their
ancestors did, bro. Yeah. Like, bro, me
I can't be mad at
not slave.
Your daddy did this. Man, you a hoe.
Hey, there's an episode of Atlanta that makes a joke out of that. How black people could go get reparations from white people whose ancestors owned slaves. So basically showing like this regular white dude just living his life, and this black lady just shows up, beats on his door. I own all this shit now. You owe me $2 million. Like she just kept following them, and like they was like forcing white people to
that shit is
and it's just ridiculous. Like when you watch it, it's like this is bullshit.
Yeah,
basically like teaching like basically the ideology
because they didn't know. You know, so when they was born, they didn't know.
Bro, they can't control that, bro. I'm tired of this logic, this us versus them logic, and white people are bad, bro.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
Trying to make white people feel bad at the fact that they're white. Like,
listen.
The best thing I've heard is that we're not dealing with racism anymore. We're dealing with evil versus good.
Exactly.
There you go, son.
That's all it is here.
Hey, that's a good one.
That's a great one. I heard that. I don't know who I got that from.
That's that fast.
I feel like white people hearing that type of shit is enough to make them turn racist. Well, shit, fuck me, fuck you.
That's what basically Scott Adams said.
Hey, basically, you poke him in the eye, he gonna poke you right back.
I said,
now you both blind.
I'm rocking with Officer Tatum because I feel like he genuinely trying to fix
That's what they said in the comments. Hate begets hate. So when we spew hate against them, they gonna spew hate against us. Boom, it's us versus them. It's sad, to me, it's idiotic. All that shit they were saying. White people this, white people that. You got it.
But y'all saw what it was.
I'm not gonna lie.
Straight females.
I can't say
like
He was making fun of the
no,
Asian
but
girl.
black people, all black people do that though.
Yeah.
I know a lot of black people.
They got a lot of black people.
I won't say all black people, but there's a lot of
It's
black
socially
people.
accepted.
Yeah.
I'm too messed up when
I'm
I
not
see
in
my
Asian.
mama
I'm
on
not
the
in the
company.
Asian shoes.
I couldn't even say no.
My Asians out there, do y'all like see racism? Like, do y'all like? I'm trying to figure out.
There was a wave of racism against Asians.
It is. Family Guy makes fun of it. Yeah, so it is.
No,
like actually,
reality,
like
actually.
No, yeah, I know.
Like a bunch of hate crimes being
That's
committed
what I
against
said.
Asians.
And I'm not
even on that, I guess.
Yeah, hey, you gotta treat others how you want to be treated. You gotta give. You want the benefit of the doubt. You gotta get the benefit.
Charlie just went in, bro.
Man,
Charlie for president, bro.
He went, man. Elect him.
Went crazy.
Elect him, man. That was a good video.
Yeah, that was a beautiful video, man. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna do